Eyes wide open. The heart of Appalachia, legends whisper of unseen spirits and shadowy figures. Don't forget to subscribe as we step deep into the misty woods to uncover what many refuse to talk about. Are they lost or something much darker? Let's take a look.
In the Appalachian Mountains, people don't say someone was murdered. They say the mountain kept them. Old folks will tell you disappearances aren't accidents. Not always. They'll say the woods have rules and things that enforce them.
No, we don't have a lot of murders per se in the area I live in. I live in West Virginia. The Appalachian Mountains are just really old, and people have lived in them for a really long time. So that means that you have a lot of folklore going on, and then there's just the things that are living out in the woods that, you know, they can eat you and stuff. In the Appalachian Mountains, we have so many animals, and then there's animals that we're not sure whether we have or not, and that's the flat truth. You could Google that. I've been to Pocahontas County and Monongahela County, and I could probably say with almost 99% certainty that there are some parts of the woods there that people have never been in. I don't know about you, but that freaks me out a little bit. Because of coal mining, we also have abandoned mine shafts. So all of that mixed together, minus the animals, plays on our basic fear of the unknown. But yeah, just put that all in a great big basket and shake it up, and fear is what people usually feel.
Hello, listen, I have tried to make this video multiple times today. Every single time the video has become corrupt. Either the audio was missing, or I was unable to open it. So, right up front, the purpose of this video, I think that I have provoked some kind of spirit, and I know it is a bold claim. I have reasoning, but for context, I live in North Georgia. I live in the lower parts of the Appalachian Mountains. Yesterday, I went climbing the mountains. Literally, there's one behind me. I went straight up this side, I went straight down the other side, and I found a adorable little branch. And I love branches, so I was very happy. There, I found an animal skull in the branch, which isn't too odd. I have found plenty of animal skulls before. I'm pretty sure this one was a baby raccoon, though I am not 100% sure. Here's a photo for reference. That is what I found I brought it on back home. I was very excited about it. I showed it to my mom, and that is where the first odd occurrence happened. I, at the time, brushed it off as more of a coincidence, and I still kind of think it most likely was. The first odd occurrence was that when I was talking to my mom about what this animal skull may be, I dropped my phone, and the screen cracked. And I've had this phone for years and have yet to crack the screen, which I've had it for years. It was going to happen. The second odd occurrence happened hours later. So, fast forward in the day. Hours later, I went to town. I went to the park for a little bit, which I do often. By the time that I was heading home, it was already dark outside. So maybe that matters. So picture it. I am driving down the back roads of the North Georgia mountains. It is dark outside. There is no one around me. It's the back roads. This was me on the way home. And as I'm sitting there, I felt this odd energy come over me. It felt like there was someone in that car with me. My first thought was, what if somebody has somehow gotten into the vehicle? What if they got in the vehicle while I was in town, and now they are going back home with me? Alright, again, no one is around on this road, so I cannot pull over and investigate. Okay? So I just have to keep going. Okay? I did start looking in the rearview mirror, trying to see if I saw anything back there, and I did see movement multiple times. So there's movement in the back seat. I keep going straight. I keep quiet. I get all the way home. I get up my driveway. I got out of the vehicle and I looked in the back seats. No one was there. I was completely alone in the vehicle. There was no one hitching a ride with me. I still felt an odd presence. That is when I went into the house and I told my mom, I felt a spirit in the car on the way home. And she said, well, did you pray? And I said, no, but I should. So a couple more hours passed and I lay down to go to sleep. Fell asleep rather quickly. which is unlike me. However, I also think that was probably a coincidence. So, fast forward a couple more hours, and I went to bed. I went to bed rather easily, which is unlike me. However, I do think that was a coincidence. I don't think the spirit was helping me fall asleep. At exactly 4 a.m., which I know, 4 a.m. is not the spooky hour, 3 a.m. is the spooky hour. Don't know why it was 4 a.m. But at exactly 4 a.m., I woke up from a dream. A dream that I remember vividly and in detail. In the dream, I was trying to sleep in my car. I couldn't see anything outside. It was completely pitch black, as if the vehicle was in a completely black void. Nothing was around. Couldn't see an inch beyond the glass. Alright? I was trying to sleep, and the car was cranked. I put my seat back, laid down, and as I laid down, suddenly, out of nowhere, someone who I could not see quickly leaned over, grabbed the keys, and turned the vehicle off. In the dream, this kind of spooked me. I think there's a lizard beside me somewhere. In the dream, this kind of spooked me. I set up to try and see who it was. It all happened within the span of like half a second. I ended up waking up, but I do know I was alone in the car in the dream, so I don't know who turned off the vehicle. Dreams are often odd. I often have odd dreams. When I first woke up, I didn't really think much of this. I just thought, it sounds like me. Happened. It wasn't even a scary dream. It was just kind of a little bit of an odd dream. So I continue laying there, and I hear, after a couple minutes of laying there, I hear in the living room the doorknob to my door, which leads outside to the wilderness of the mountains. I hear the doorknob rattle, as if somebody's trying to open it. Alright? And I lay there, and I thought, first thought was, it's the wind. The house is settling. Or I'm mishearing it. Maybe it's one of the animals in my house. I don't know what that was, but I'm gonna keep going. I laid there for a few more minutes, and then I hear it again. Very distinct rattle noise of the doorknob being pulled down, okay? As if someone's trying to open the door. The second time I thought that definitely sounds like the doorknob. It is definitely the doorknob. I still don't know for sure what it is. Maybe I'm losing my mind. It is the third time that it happens that I set up and grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. And I got up out of bed, and I walked into the living room, and I shined my light outside of the window of the door. Most of the door is a window. No one was there. Nothing was there. There was nothing to tamper with. Still, I locked it, because I didn't think to lock it before I went to bed. No one's around me. Okay? But anyway, I locked it then, obviously. And then I go and I lay back down. Exactly 3 minutes passed. Exactly 3 minutes passed. When suddenly, the doorknob gets rattled again, except this time so much louder and so much more distinct. Someone's trying to get through the door noise. This did freak me out a pretty good deal. Did I get up and I go in there and investigate further? It is getting so dark. No, I didn't. I remained in bed, and I called my mom, who lives upstairs above me, and I told her that something is messing with my door. The odd factor is that when I went to check, I saw nobody. My mom let our pit bulls out. 3 pit bulls that stay upstairs with her. She let them outside. They ran around the holler a little bit, and then they came back in. Nothing was out. So what was it? Don't know. But too many odd things lined up. Alright? The weird dream before I woke up was weird. Obviously, I just said it was a weird dream. The fact that I felt something odd in the vehicle with me, and then I dreamt about the vehicle, and then I just so happened to wake up to somebody trying to break into my house through the door. I don't know. I think it's paranormal. And I don't know what spirit I provoked, and I don't know how I provoked it. Because I don't think it's the raccoon. So yeah, now it's too dark for me and I'm going inside. I didn't mean for me to stay out with it getting this dark.
I own a cleaning company, and I see quite a bit of houses in a day. And there's 2 houses, that I for sure know, and one of them today just confirmed it. I know that they have ghosts in their house. So I go to this client's house about every 2 weeks. And 2 weeks ago, I had this gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach that I needed to ask her if she had gone somewhere. And somewhere that was like different, because I'm going to keep it vague on like what she does for a living, but she does have to study and do stuff as far as like geological things. And I didn't get a chance to ask her the last time because she had gone to the gym. And whatever, I forgot about it, went about my business. So I came to her house again today, and it was just me this time. And she was in her front room and she was doing her job. And I've been cleaning her house, I'm wrapping things up, I'm starting to vacuum, and I go into her room and I'm vacuuming, and I open up her closet and vacuum, and I shut the door, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a little boy. And she has like a hutch, sorry, I had to think of the word, that sits right next to the foot of her bed. And I could see a little boy, and he had both of his hands like this, peeking over her bed. And it was a little blonde boy with a bowl cut with blue eyes. And he had ears that were poking out. And it was quick. It was like 3 seconds, and then he was gone. And I had the most overwhelming sense of, I wasn't supposed to see him. I was not supposed to see him. And all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I had goosebumps. And I was pretending like I didn't see him, but he knew I saw him. And so I go into the next room where she's at, and I was like, hey, I've been meaning to ask you, did you go somewhere different the last time that I had come? Yes, I did, she said. I actually had to go and visit a mine. Why? I was like, you need to sage your house. You need to sage your house immediately because there is a little boy in your room. And she's like, do you have a good feeling or a bad feeling? I have a very bad feeling about him. And he, I can tell, is near me, and he is mad that I am telling you because I don't think he wanted you to know that he was here. And I was like, well, I got goosebumps telling you this. She's like, I have goosebumps too. And my heart is just pounding out of my chest. And I told her, I was just like, he doesn't seem friendly. It's a child, but it doesn't, I'm not getting the sense that he's a child. I'm an empath. I have seen things before in the past. This isn't the first time that I've seen something, and it's not going to be the last time. And it's not the first time that I've experienced something. This one, I've never seen one while I'm awake, except for that one other time. But not during the day. I've never seen it during the day, and I got the willies from it. I've never mopped a house so fast in my life. She ended up giving me some sage, and when I walked out of her house, I said, whatever's here, you can't come with me. You can't stay here, but you can't come with me. She gave me sage, and funny that it's snowing. It's her cleaning day, and I wasn't supposed to be there at the time that I normally came. I actually came an hour early, and I think that all the signs were there that I was supposed to tell her that thing was in her house. But apparently this isn't the first time that this has happened. She's experienced this quite a few times. And she said that one of the other times that this had happened, it took her a really, really long time to get it out of the house. And yeah, so if you feel something, that's something. Okay? Trust your gut. That was scary. I got the willies. Whew.
One of the scariest encounters I ever had in the Indian room of my grandparents' Appalachian home. Okay, so you guys might have known that I'm from Appalachia. I live in Oklahoma now. You're going to see it lightning in the background. We're about to have some tornadoes come through here. So growing up, guys, I've had tons of these scary experiences happen in this Appalachia home, especially with what I would call the Indian room. Now, what I mean when I call it the Indian rooms, I don't mean it anything bad. This home was built in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachian Mountains of Jackson County, Tennessee. And there was artifacts that were found on my grandparents' property that were actual, like, Cherokee Indian artifacts. National Geographic actually came out and took a totem pole that was found on the property. I'm obviously not Native American. My wife is. Man, this story, okay. This is not one to watch if you're sitting here in your own bed late at night and you're scared, okay? Save it, watch this in the morning. So, every weekend, my cousins would all spend the night there, and there was a bunch of us, and we'd all meet up at my grandma's house, and we'd all spend the night, and we'd hang out, and we were the best of friends. We were all with just a few years of each other, and I might have been about 10 or 11 years old when this happened. So, in the Indian room, me and my cousin Danny were spending the night. My other two cousins were in a different room. My little brother was in a different room. This house is multi-level, and it's real dark. It's real eerie. There's no street lights. There's nobody out there except for us. And I'm laying in this bed, and in the middle of the night, he's like, I gotta get up and go to the bathroom. And I was like, oh, great. That means I'm gonna be in the Indian room by myself. And I'm talking, there's like old Indian, like, statues, like, that are life size. Like, this room looks like something that's out of a horror movie with, like, these crazy old artifacts everywhere. These, like, old paintings, like this really sad, like, Trail of Tears stuff. Anyhow, he gets up and goes to the bathroom, and I'm just laying there. And it's pitch dark. You can barely see the outlines of everything in this room. And the closet is right next to me on the right. And I used to always hate that closet. I used to have nightmares that Native American statue would come to life, and it would drag me into that closet. So I'm sitting there staring at this closet door, and I thought I hear a little bit of rustling. And I thought, my mind's playing tricks on me. You know, I was a scaredy cat kid. And this door, I'm looking at this closet door, and sure enough, this door is opening so slowly that I can't really tell if it's opening or not. And I'm staring at it for what felt like an eternity. And I'm like, where is Danny at? He needs to get back from the bathroom. And this door is open so slowly. Now I'm positive that I can actually see a gap between the door and the door frame now. And I keep staring. And sure enough, that door is open. But I thought, I'm dreaming. This isn't real. And it must have been 3 or 4 minutes. That door is open about that much now. And I could see the side of a face, and I could see what I thought was an eye. And I immediately thought, oh my God, there it is. This Native American statue thing came to life, and it's watching me. He's staring at me. He's going to drag me in that closet like I've had these nightmares about. Well, nothing happened for a while. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this can't be real, because I've stared at it for way too long. And I think, well, Danny must be having diarrhea, just something fierce. He's been gone or it's done got him. He's dead. Sure enough, that door opens a little bit more. This is where the story gets kind of hard to tell, because a lot of people, people don't want to believe a kid, I'm looking at what I can only describe as the devil himself just staring at me. I mean, it's a perfectly round face. This door's open just enough where I can see both sides of the cheekbones. And it's dark in this room. I can see his silhouette, and I can tell it's a deep red or a dark gray color. There's little tufts of hair, and I could swear he was smiling at me, but not like a frown, like an upside down smile, but like a smile like he was showing all of his bottom teeth. And I'm staring at him. And I thought, this is it. This is my life's over, or I'm going to wake up from this nightmare at any second. And people always ask, what do you do in those situations when you're finally confronted with the truth that there is demons or ghosts or monsters? And I guess I couldn't move at all. I just was in terror. And after what felt like 7 or 8 seconds, I hear a grunt. And as soon as I heard this thing grunt, it was like everything in me released, and I just screamed, and I jumped up out of bed. And as soon as I jumped up and screamed, the front door of the bedroom came flying open, and my grandpa came in screaming and hollering, and that closet door slammed shut. I mean, it slammed shut. He hears it. I see it. He opens that closet door, and there's nothing there.
What's really in the Appalachian Mountains? If you're new here, I grew up smack dab in the middle of Appalachia, and I've got scary stories for days. This story is about 5 years ago when we were outside, and there's something in the woods. But I don't know what it was, and I really can't explain it away. So let me set the scene for you. We are outside. It is the middle of the night. And hear me out. I know that the rules of Appalachia say in the middle of the night, you basically can't be outside, but we were outside on someone's back porch, and this porch stood off the ground. I'm talking the back patio was at least a good 6 to 7 feet off the ground and enclosed in. There was no way to get off this patio and no way to get on the patio. But the patio did back up into the middle of the woods. It was spring. It was a beautiful night outside, and we're all sitting outside just talking. I was home visiting, and we're just shooting at this point. I can't even remember what the conversation was, but it wasn't scary. It wasn't creepy. Like, nobody was freaking out. The vibes were okay. All of a sudden, it gets eerily quiet. I'm talking about you don't hear birds, you don't hear bugs, you don't hear the wind rustling anymore. It is super, super duper quiet. So we stop talking and we're just looking around at each other thinking, is this normal? Like, do you hear what I'm hearing? What's going on? And then I hear what I can only explain is almost like a high-pitched scream, like a woman is screaming in terror, or a small, small infant. I'm talking about a super, super tiny baby. You know, like the newborn babies have that certain cry about them. We just hear this like high-pitched cry. And to be honest with you, it didn't freak me out at first, because if you've been anywhere in the mountains, not just Appalachia, if you're outside at night, there are certain mountain lions, cats that make a noise that is so similar to a woman screaming that it really didn't strike me as odd, but it was loud. And again, we are up off the ground. Nothing can get to us. There's no gate. There's nothing. There's no way to get up to this back porch. And we just look at each other, and I remember making a joke that was like, I hope that's not a baby, or I hope that's not an infant crying, like it's something trying to get us to go in the woods and look for it. And if you've heard any of the Appalachian lore, you know you're not supposed to go in the woods. And trust me, we weren't going to, but I'd cracked a little joke. And maybe I shouldn't have cracked a joke in the middle of the woods now that I think back about it. Anyways, again, it doesn't freak anybody out, so we're just talking. Nothing can get to us, right? So we hear rustling in the woods, almost like something is walking on 2 feet, but they're dragging their feet, right? And it's springtime, so there's still dead leaves around, yada, 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 but it's like a dragging, walking sound. But again, we're in the middle of the woods, and like, why wouldn't you think that something's not walking around in the woods, an animal or whatever? So we're fine. We're kind of laughing, a little nervous at this point. But then all of a sudden we hear knocks, like something's knocking on a tree trunk. So like, imagine just hearing. And that knock sounded very distant in the woods. And again, we're writing it off to some animals or something, like, whatever. We're laughing. I don't think I'm laughing at this point, actually. I'm like, I'm the closest to the door, so I'm just watching the door. We're alert at this point. And we look at each other. We're like, did you hear this random knocking? And of course, we're having conversation. And as soon as we stop talking about it and we write it off to something rustling in the woods, squirrels, what have you, the knocking happens again. Except this time it's the classic 3 loud knocks, and it is so close to us. I mean, I feel like it is literally right in front of my face. Needless to say, we stood up and we all walked inside, and we stopped talking about it. We stopped playing it off. We literally all in tandem stood up together and just filed inside. So what was trying to get our attention? Could it have been an animal at first, and then we got a little spooked? And then those knocks were a little something more supernatural? Is it all just a coincidence, and it just so happens that I'm in the Appalachian Mountains, and every time I hear something, I now consider it to be something supernatural and super spooky? I can tell you one thing, my friends and I, we didn't sit around long enough to figure it out.
I have seen a not deer, actually fairly recently. It was this past summer. I was coming home. Sorry about that. I was coming home. I don't remember where I was even coming home for, to be honest, but it was, I'd be out late every night. I'd be coming home super late, like, or in the morning, like early in the morning, like late at night / early in the morning. Like it was definitely like very late. And, I would have, where I live in the mountains, Appalachian Mountains. And where I live specifically, there's like town area at the bottom, and then you come off like the highway, because I work 45 minutes away. So you come off the highway, you come off the exit, and then you go through the town, and then you start going up a mountain. And so You go up the mountain. It's about 10 minutes. It's about a 10-minute drive if you drive the speed limit. And if you drive like me, it's like 5. I don't drive speed limit unless I get stuck behind someone. Anyway, but this night, and at nighttime, like, obviously, there's, like, no one. Like, at night, like, that late at night, like, no one's on that mountain except for, like, few people that work late, like I used to, especially at that time. So, I was coming up the mountain, and I was just cruising. Like, I wasn't behind anybody. I was listening to my music. Like, everything was fine. There's, like, towards the top, there's, like, these couple, like, bends. There's a bend, and then there's a few curves where it gets, like, really windy, and then you take one big curve, and then you are pretty much going straight until you get to, like, it's considered a village, but it's on the top of the mountain there. And for the county I live in, like, my county that I live in, it's literally just, like, mountains and woods. The town that's at the bottom of the mountain's different county. So it's not even the same county. So where I live, it's just all woods, all mountains, like, ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm coming up. I'm about to, like, hit, like, the curves coming up. And I hit the one turn, which it's not at the curves yet. It's almost there, but it's, like, a sharp enough turn that you don't see right away. And I'm making the turn, like this. And then there's something standing in the middle of the road. And when I say in the middle of the road, I mean, like, sorry. And when I say that it was, like, standing in the middle of the road, I mean, like, okay, so here's the road. Here's the, like, 2 lines in the middle. Here's lines, like, right here. It's standing, like, right here. So on my side, it's standing in my way of the road. Like, in my way. But, like, not on the lines, per se. So this whole left side, like, coming this way, completely open. I'm flying, so this all happens in a matter of seconds, okay? I'm coming up, and I see, like, there's something standing there, and it doesn't even look like anything. What it looks like is, like, I don't know how to explain it. It looks like a tree. Like a fuzzy tree stump. Like a skinny, fuzzy tree stump. That is the only way I can explain it. Closer I get, all of a sudden, a head pops out, right? A head pops out. I come to realize pretty quickly that it is a very skinny deer standing, facing away from me, so facing up the mountain. And it was facing this way. And then when it saw my car coming, it, like, turned its head back to look at me. But the head didn't look right. And I don't know how to explain it. Because, like I said, this is a matter of seconds. So I didn't actually get a very good, look of it. And especially whenever I veered to the left and passed it, I did not look to my right to figure out what it was. Okay? So I see this and I floor it. I kind of, like, veer off into the left and I floored it. I stepped on the gas and I was gone. Like I said, I did not look to the right at all. I refused. I was like, I am not looking that way. So because at this point, I'm just locked in, forward, speeding. My only, like, thought or concern is to get home. Because at that point, it's, like, a couple minutes till I get home. So I pass this deer thing and I just go up the mountain. I hit those turns. I don't think I've ever hit those turns so quickly, so fast. I was at nighttime on these turns. It's better at nighttime because you can cut these turns a little easier at nighttime, because then if there's a car coming, you'll see the headlights coming. So you'll know when not to cut. Well, it's nighttime, so I'm just cutting these turns. I'm almost not even, like, caring at this point. Like, I am just trying to cut and get through. I did not look in my mirror. I did not look out of the sides. I didn't care. I was locked in to go forward. I finally get home, and I have never put my car in park, turned the car off, gotten out. I left my keys in the car and everything, which doesn't really matter where I live, but I turned the car off, hopped out of my car. Thank God my front door was not locked, because we don't really do that around here that much. I have been doing a lot more as of recently, and that's those are totally different stories for another video, because this is definitely more recent. But I flew in that door, I locked it behind myself, and I went to bed. I did grab my phone, don't worry. I grabbed my phone. That was like the only thing I grabbed. I turned it off. Put it in park, turned it off, grabbed my phone. I was out. I didn't look behind myself at all. You don't look behind yourself. You just go. You don't pay attention to that. But, yeah. That's my story of the not deer. I will tell you that that mountain especially, like driving it, it's just creepy. Like at night, it's so creepy. I would never stop at night for anything. Like I was not stopping for that deer. So.
Hi, my name is Christine. I live in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, and I wanted to tell you guys a story that happened to me and my friend, my best friend. It happened to us about 4 years ago, and every time I tell the story, everybody's like, you've got to share the story. So while my babies are asleep, I'm going to share that story. So me and my best friend, we always take our dogs hiking, walking, whatever. There's a couple trails in the area that we can get off the beaten path and let the dogs just run, explore. And we don't have to have them on leashes. Our dogs have good recalls, so we can recall them back. But so our husbands were working one night in the garage, and we decided we were going to do like a dusk walk in the mountains. Now we have done this hike 100 times before, and we always do, it's like a loop. It's like a almost 2-mile loop, up into the mountains. And yeah. So anyways, when we start, we always start at the bottom of the mountain, and then we go up and we do the loop, and then we come back. And we knew we were kind of pushing it with time. It was getting dark. Anyways, we got our dogs out. I had 3 dogs with me. She had 4 dogs with her. And there was nobody on the trail. There was no cars, nothing. So we didn't even put our dogs on the leash to start. So at the beginning of the hike, I carry my fanny pack. So she always puts her keys in my vehicle, and then I lock my vehicle and keep my keys with me. And we're at the very beginning of the hike, and we are just getting started, and we're kind of going fast because we know we're pushing it. You know, it's getting dark, so we're pushing it to make it back before dark. The dogs are having the best time. They are just running around, playing, getting good exercise. And me and Dory are just walking and talking, like we always do. And we get about 15 minutes into the walk. Not even 15 minutes. We're like 5 minutes into the walk. And I'm looking, and we're just talking, and I see someone. And I see this lady. And I say, Tori, there's a lady up here. Get your dogs, because we got to get our dogs back. So then we're just kind of going around like crazy. And I get all 3 of my dogs. She gets all 4 of her dogs. And we get them on our leashes and stuff. And we keep walking. And I know I saw this lady. And so I'm just like looking for her. And then I just get like these cold chills. And I'm like, that lady was in a white dress, and she's not there anymore. And it creeps me out. I'm easily scared. I'm a chicken to say it lightly. And so she's like, where did you see her? And I was like, I saw her right there at that tree. And I was like, oh, she's not there. I didn't see anybody, I guess. And, yeah, so it really creeped us out. But instead of turning around, we decided to keep going. And then I was just like being goofy. And I was like, we are one with nature. The nature Appalachian spirits loves us. They take care of us. They protect us. Thank you for protecting us, keeping us safe, just being silly, but also being serious, because it really creeped me out. And so we get about a mile into the hike whenever we turn around to do our loop, and the dogs start going ballistic, like probably a bear. They probably smelled a bear or something, but they are going crazy. They're going every which way, smelling all the smells, barking, just being crazy. So in my fanny pack, that I keep my keys locked in, and there's 2 zippers to get to my keys, I should mind you. So, there's one zipper that's in the fanny pack and then the main zipper. So like to get to my keys, you have to unzip the main fanny pack and then unzip the zipper. And anyways, that comes into context later. But, so I open the main zipper and I get the treats out, and it's crazy. The dogs are wild. So we're like, treats, and they come back immediately and we give them all treats. And that is the only time I open up my fanny pack. Mind you, we are well into a 30-minute-ish hike. We're probably at 35 minutes and we're at the top, about to go back down the loop. And so we get them all their treats, we get them on their leashes, and we decide we need to start hoofing it, which is walking fast. And so we get them all chained up. We start walking at a pretty fast rate because now it's getting dark. And we had that little bit of a creepy experience happen, so we're walking a little bit faster. So we get down to the vehicle, and it is dark. We're not using flashlights yet, but we're almost to the point of having to use flashlights. So we walked down this mountain quick, and we get there and I open my fanny pack and I realize that I go to open my fanny pack and I realized that it wasn't closed. And I was like, oh crap. And I go to get my keys out and they are not in the fanny pack. And her and I are both stressing, but we realize that I had to have dropped these keys where I opened my fanny pack and got the dog's treats out. So at least we know exactly where we lost the keys at. So anyways, we decide in that moment, we're like, try to call our husbands to get some headlamps and stuff like that to go look. Well, where they're in the garage, they have no service. So literally, we probably could have called other people in the moment, but we were like, we have the dogs. We're safe. We'll just go back up the trail and retrace our steps and find the keys. Sorry, this is really long. I'm trying to make this as short as possible, but we decide to use our phone flashlights and walk back up the trail and retrace our steps. And we just let the dogs off because we're like, well, they'll protect us from anything. And we have other means of protection too when we're hiking, just to throw that out there. Not just bear spray. Anyways, so we're walking back up the mountain and we're shining our lights. I'm a little creeped out because in the back of my mind, I have not forgotten about this lady that I have seen. And we are speed walking because to get to where we were before, it takes about 30-40 minutes, and it's a straight up the mountain hike. So we're like, well, we'll just kick it into high gear, hike really quick, get there, get the keys and leave. So we are hiking fast. The dogs are tired, but hiking with us. And we get to the spot where I saw the lady. And I don't know why, but we were just like, let's start looking right here because everything was wild and crazy. But I didn't find the keys where I was standing. We shined a light and I saw this thing flash. And we found my keys exactly where that lady was standing. And it freaked me out. Freaked us both out, but she didn't want to admit she was more scared than she was. I know you were. But I picked up the keys. I said, thank you very much for returning us these keys safely. I am a little scared, so please don't show yourself. Thank you for protecting us. And then we got the keys and we ran back down to the truck and got in our truck and left. It could have been nothing, but the fact that I found the keys right where I saw her standing and I didn't go there was pretty wild to me. But it made me feel like she brought the keys down. I don't know. That's wild. I don't know. But yeah, so that's my Appalachian Mountain story. And, it could be crazy, but that's it.
You all wanted to hear more of my Appalachian ghost stories from my childhood. This one actually does not belong to me. It belongs to my dad before I was born. There was an apartment complex that him and a friend shared as roommates. And there was one night that they had, kind of been out partying, having a few drinks. And that night, my dad went back to his bedroom, but his roommate did not make it to his bed. He laid on the couch and fell asleep on the couch. And my dad said in the middle of the night he thought that his roommate had walked to the doorway of his room because there was a silhouette of a man on the wall. And the silhouette, though, it seemed like it was growing. And my dad thought it was his eyes playing tricks on him. He was half asleep. But he said this overwhelming sense of dread just came over him. It was like he was having a panic attack. And the silhouette just kept getting bigger and bigger until all of a sudden it's towering over the whole room. And then he kind of snaps out of this sleepy stupor he's in. And the silhouette's gone. He yells. And, his roommate's like, "What in the world are you yelling about?" And they all teased him about it. Well, the next year for college, they moved to a different apartment. And the new resident was actually somebody they knew. And a month after living at this apartment by himself, that guy actually in that very bedroom that my dad saw the silhouette spread and grow up over the wall. So that's just yet another what people call a shadow man story. It's mostly filled with dread and terror and, people taking their own lives. But look into the shadow man theory, the shadow man stories. It gets pretty wild.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the strange and unexplained phenomena of the South Mountains of North Carolina. I am your host, Kaiser Rebel. This is episode 11, and it is titled Forest Lights and Night Screams. Tonight's account, which was very recently shared with me by a fellow we're going to call Dave, is going to take us back to the summer of 1976 on the periphery of the South Mountains. And Dave and his two best friends, all 13 years of age, had begun being out of school, roaming the woods. Restless boys do that in the country. And they were going deeper and deeper into the woods to different spots. And they came across a spot that, as Dave described to me, they just felt drawn to. Now, there was a distinctive thing about this spot, a large pile of rocks. And he said that that pile of rocks came up to their eye level. And they would visit the area. He said that they felt drawn to it for some reason. So they hatched a plan that they were going to camp there. And they soon started calling it, that area, their cowboy camp. They built a lean-to. They built a makeshift perimeter fence using small pine logs that they had cut. Dug a fire pit, took rocks off of the fire pit, put the quintessential wall of rocks around the fire pit. And it wasn't long before they secured permission from their respective parents to do their long-awaited camping trip. So the day came. And they went on the roughly 30-minute walk into the woods, carrying all their gear, just being three 13-year-old boys who were high on life. And they got to their camp, and there was a few things out of order. First of all, they noticed that all of the rocks were gone off their fire pit. And their perimeter fence made of those logs, which were basically leaning against trees and things like that, according to how it was described to me, they were all laying on the ground just haphazardly. Now, an interesting thing is that he said when they were putting the rocks around the fire pit, that there was a number of larger pieces of smoky quartz. That's just a dark colored quartz. It almost looks, well, like the name implies, you took a piece of quartz and blew smoke into it. But they were distinctive. You don't see the bigger pieces like that very often, especially in one place. But it became evident to them that the rocks had been taken from their fire pit and put back on the rock pile. But in his words, he said that we didn't think a lot about it. We were boys. We were excited to be in the woods camping, and we just didn't think anything else about it. So they put their fence back up. They fixed their fire pit back up, and they began busying themselves doing what boys in the woods are going to do with their hatchets and pocket knives and yelling and screaming and carrying on and having a good time. And as the day wore on, and it started getting late evening, they stoked up the fire and they started heating up pork and beans on the campfire in their camping their camping pots and pans. And they had put some RC colas in the creek nearby and got them good and cold. And then after they ate, boys gonna be boys. He said that they had some contraband Winstons. And so they broke out the contraband Winston cigarettes and was sitting around the fire pit feeling like they were 30-year-old men smoking their cigarettes. And I've been there. I know what it's like. And they soon started telling ghost stories. Now, he said that they told ghost stories they grew up hearing and that they weren't particularly scary. But there's an allure to that, and I think most of us can relate. But the night wore on, it got dark, and they decided to turn in. So they went into their little shack that they had built and bedded down, and it wasn't long before they was asleep. But they were awakened suddenly by screaming in the woods. Now, Dave said that it sounded like a man screaming and not a woman, and that it scared them. And obviously it would any of us. But then there was another, and it was coming from the same direction, but it was getting closer to them. But soon stopped. And when it stopped, they took their flashlights and went outside to investigate. And they looked around, and he said they heard nothing, they saw nothing, until up in the trees, not above the tree line, but in the trees, there was this white light. And that the white light, according to Dave, was moving. And at times it was moving slowly. Other times it was moving rapidly and going up and down. I pressed him. I said, are you sure it was in the trees and not something past the trees? And he said, absolutely. That he was certain that light was up in the trees. He said that it was like a man waving a light in a 50-foot oak and then throwing it to a man in the other oak tree. Now, I'll stop there real quick and say that in this area, we have a history of some weird lights. There's what people call jack-o'-lantern lights. There's these weird white lights, weird orange lights. In June of 2021, over on the eastern end of the South Mountains, a lady got a picture accidentally at an outdoor event of one of these strange lights in the sky. There was, in May 2023, a man late at night saw a similar thing. A light up in the trees moving very fast, blinking out, coming back on. And then 10 days later, incredibly, happened again, but he was ready for it. He got it on video with his cell phone camera. I've seen the video. But the light would come and go. It would go out and then come back on. It would move. It would reappear in a different position. But then more of those strange yells began. And it wasn't just the screaming voice that sounded like a man screaming, but there was different things. I asked Dave, I said, well, can you describe these different noises? And he said, hard to describe, but it sounded like a bunch of monkeys or something. And that went on, according to Dave, for a while. They didn't feel very safe in their little shack that they had built, and they lost nerve. Now, they knew that within a relatively short walk was a cow pasture, and in that cow pasture was an old shed, and they decided, rather than try to make it all the way back home, they were going to make it to the cow pasture and seek shelter in that shed, and they did so. He said the whole time that they were leaving the camp with as much of their stuff as they could carry. After they got a certain distance away, they began hearing more of the yells and the screams behind them, and the sound of utter destruction. It sounded like something was just demolishing the place. And terrified, they rode out the night in that old shed in that cow pasture. And first light, they decided to take an alternate route back home. They came out cautiously out of the shed. The sun was just peeking up, and they heard it again. They heard the yells, the man screams, as Dave described, but it seemed to be further away. And they went back home, and they were upset, but they didn't speak of this to their parents for several weeks. Finally, one of the boys told his father about it, and there was a meeting that took place. The fathers wanted to know more about it. They collectively questioned the boys and decided that they wanted the boys to take them and show them their cowboy camp, and they wanted to investigate this. And at this point, it's important to note, I asked Dave if he knew of any precedent of things like this happening, and he said only tales of strange lights and then, unrelated ghost stories, but never anything like this. So the boys and their fathers went back to their cowboy camp, and upon their arrival, they discovered that their little shack was completely demolished, and that the fire pit, all the rocks were gone. The pieces of smoky quartz were clearly placed back on top of the rock pile. Their fence, their makeshift fence they had made out of the pine logs was not only down, but all the logs were gone except for two. And there, very near the center of the camp, those logs were placed in the fashion of an X in the crook of that tree. Dave said that they never went back to that spot again after that day, and their fathers cautioned him not to talk about it to anybody, and that they never camped in those woods anywhere else for the rest of their lives. He said that he often wonders what it was and what was going on with the light and the screams, but he said, I will never go back there again as long as I live.
Martin's Fork Lake, located in Harlan County, Kentucky, was created in the late 1970s for flood control. Today, the lake is a peaceful recreational area. People from all over come to swim, fish, picnic, and hike around the beautiful lake surrounded by the Appalachian Mountains. But some visitors say the lake isn't always as peaceful as it seems. Over the years, there have been unusual reports from people. Several witnesses claim to have seen strange creatures around the lake, and some say something or someone in the water. One of the most chilling sightings happened in late September of 2020. A young couple had come to the lake for an evening walk on the beach. As they were finishing their walk, they both started to feel uneasy, a feeling of sadness and confusion. Then they saw it, a pale man in the water, 30 yards from the shore. The figure pulled itself up from the water using a buoy. The couple watched in disbelief. They said the figure was tall and slender and very, very pale, with its upper body and chest completely exposed above the waterline, like he was standing. But the water was much too deep there. The ghostly figure looked around like he was confused, trying to figure out what was going on. Then just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure slowly sank back beneath the surface. Say that fast 3 times. No ripples in the water, no noise at all. The couple waited, staring at the water, expecting it to resurface. But he never did. There were no splashes, no signs of distress, and no swimmer ever came back to the shore. There were no other cars in the parking lot, no other people on the beach, and no reason anyone should be in the water at all this time of year. Way too cold to swim. Some believe the mysterious swimmer could be the spirit of one of the many people who have tragically drowned in the lake over the years. Whatever the explanation may be, one thing is certain: Harlan County is the home of many things that you just can't explain.
She's given me permission to share her name. Her name is Stephanie, but she did not send me her TikTok handle. So Stephanie, if you see this, comment below because people might have questions. Stephanie said her and her husband, they went hiking in the Appalachian Trail up near the Carolinas, right? She said they went for a week-long hiking trip and everything was normal at first. She said for the first 3 days, they were just hiking, trying to see how far they could get. On the third night, they set up camp, she said, near like an abandoned tower. I don't know what the tower was. She said an abandoned tower. They set it up. She said her husband put the tent on the concrete slab to make it a little easier for him. They went to bed, right? About 1:30, her husband woke her up saying, I think I hear a woman outside. Well, they both get up. The husband unzips the tent a little bit to look out with his flashlight. And at that moment, they hear a woman say, help me. But she said the voice sounded hoarse, like the woman was in trouble. The husband says, what do you think we should do? Well, they unzip the tent and get out. Once they get out, they hear it louder. Please help me. The husband and her at this point are like, okay, so they're yelling, where are you? Okay, please answer. Let us know what direction you're in. They're shining their flashlights. Nothing. It's silent now. She said a few moments later, they hear like the bushes rustling. They shine the light over there. There's nothing. There's no more sound, no more woman, no more nothing. She said her and her husband look for about 20 to 30 more minutes. They can't find anything. They're calling. So her husband decides maybe it's just somebody hiking in the area messing with us. Let's go back in the tent. They go back in the tent, they shut it. They said in the morning they were going to see if they could find a park ranger to report it to. Well, the next morning they hike a little bit further. They can't find a park ranger. No, they have, again, no cell phone signals. They're like, you know what? Maybe it was just somebody messing with us. She said, however, right before nightfall, things get weird. She said they start hearing like a whisper, help me, help me, help me. And she's looking around. She said her husband, she sees him looking at the tree line, frozen in fear. She looks at the direction he's looking at, and standing off in the distance is a creature or a thing, she said, with extremely long arms, and it was wearing her face. She said it looked identical to her, just opening its mouth, screaming, help me. She said all she remembers next is her husband said, run. They took off running all the way back down the trail, and she said miraculously they ran into a park ranger, which, thank God, she ran into a park ranger, and the park ranger said that there's been reports of things like this all over, that it might have just been their imagination. But she said when they left, they stopped at a general store and talked to a local, and the local told her the park rangers can say what they want, but there are mimics in the area, and they're known to take your face and your voice, to be careful anytime you camp out there.
This happened 2 years ago, and it took me a long time to talk about it. Not because I forgot, but because the mountains don't let you forget. My friend Andrew, Sophia, and I planned a weekend trip to an Airbnb in the Appalachian Mountains. We found a cabin for an unusually low price. The only downside was the drive, almost 3 hours, deep into the mountains. Friday afternoon, Andrew picked me up. Sophia had to work late, so she planned to meet us there that night. As we drove higher, the snow got heavier. Cell service faded in and out. The roads narrowed until it felt like we were driving through a tunnel of trees. The mountain felt watchful, not threatening, just aware. We arrived after sunset. The cabin sat alone, surrounded by forests on all sides. No nearby houses, no light in the distance, just silence that felt thicker than it should have been. The owner, John, had messaged me earlier in the week explaining where the key was and told me to reach out if there was any issues. Inside, the place was clean, but old. The kind of old where the floors creak even when no one's moving. We unpacked, walked around, and tried to relax. Then there was a knock at the door. It was John. He said he was just stepping by to check in, make sure everything in the house was working properly. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. He didn't come all the way inside, just stood near the doorway, looking past us into the house, like he was memorizing it. After a few minutes, he left. Andrew and I ate and played games while we waited for Sophia. Outside, the snow kept falling. The woods were completely still. No wind, no animals, nothing. Eventually, Andrew got a voicemail from Sophia. She'd gotten a flat tire about 20 minutes away and couldn't drive any further. Andrew insisted on going to get her and told me to stay behind and rest. I didn't like being alone out there, but I agreed. I locked the doors and went to bed. Around midnight, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. I didn't turn on many lights. The house felt different at night. Every sound echoed. Every creak felt closer. When I opened the bathroom door, my heart stopped. There was a man crouched under the sink. For a second, my brain refused to accept what I was seeing. Then, he looked up. It was John. I jumped back and asked what he was doing there. Without hesitation, he said he was fixing the sink. His voice was steady, like this was completely normal. But something felt wrong. I hadn't reported any issues, and the way he was positioned, quiet, low, already inside, felt intentional. I told him he needed to leave immediately. He stood up, slowly. I followed him downstairs, keeping my distance, watching his hands. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, my phone vibrated. It was a text message from John. It read, "Sorry for the late response. I hope you've settled in okay. I had to work overtime tonight. I'll stop by tomorrow to check in." My stomach dropped. The real owner wasn't here. The man inside the house was now standing near the back door, facing away from me. For a moment, no one moved. Then he shifted his weight, like he knew I'd figured it out. I ran. I sprinted upstairs, locked myself inside a closet, and waited, trying not to make a sound. I could hear footsteps moving through the house. Slow, deliberate, doors opening, the floorboards creaking closer. I thought about how far we are from anyone, how deep in the mountains we were, how easily someone could disappear out there. Then, faintly, I heard the sound of the front door opening. The footsteps changed instantly, fast, uneven. I heard the back door fly open, and someone crashing through the snow and branches. It was Andrew and Sophia. They told me whoever it was had run straight into the woods, into the dark, in the snow, like he knew exactly where he was going. We decided we didn't want to spend another second at the Airbnb, so we left. Even now, I still think about how close I came to something worse. If I hadn't gone to the bathroom, if I hadn't checked my phone, if the mountains hadn't been so quiet. Some places don't need ghosts. Sometimes the scariest thing in Appalachia is realizing someone else knows those woods better than you ever could.
Would you like to know the real reason Appalachia is haunted and scary? Probably because everybody has their whole family buried in their backyard. No, seriously, it's very common, like everybody has a family cemetery in their backyard here. My family cemetery is actually across from my parents' house.
Huh? Yeah. Are you going through the I'm going.
Do you want to?
No! Fuck, I'm scared to death.
Do you want me to?
No, not really. You want to get out?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, hang on.
Park down here.
If you've ever felt watched or seen something just beyond the light, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. As always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.